else hear her?
No, can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can hear you. Yes.
That's because I had to finger the microphone.
Oh,
Yeah.
said the actress to the bishop.
Hi, wife.
Hello, wife. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I am good. Jean says hello.
Oh, hi, Jean. Is he there?
He is.
Oh, good. He's in the background.
He's
Excellent.
in the background.
Excellent,
Um,
excellent, excellent.
so yeah, so we thought today we would get together and talk about a little bit about how intimacy and desire can be intertwined. And we're speaking with the beautiful and talented Cyndi Darnell, who is the author of the new book. Why don't you tell them the title?
It's called Sex When You Don't Feel Like It, The Truth About Mismatched Libido and Rediscovering Desire.
Mm-hmm.
And you can probably tell from the title, it's not a cookbook, although maybe it'll get things cooking.
Yeah.
But it's about sex when you don't feel like it, because a lot of people don't feel like it, or they're in relationships with people who don't feel like it, and they feel like it a lot more than their partners do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my jam. I've spent 10 years researching what happens when you don't feel like it, and then what happens when you want it again, and how to get back there.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book is really all about that. And
Okay.
there's so many parts to it, obviously, and we're looking at one part of that today. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wanted to start with a quote from your book,
Oh,
because I thought it was a really, I don't know, I think it speaks to what we're talking about today. And you said, in many ways, desire is an idea that transforms into both a feeling and a sensation. And desire requires us to engage mentally, physically, and emotionally. So I wanted to talk to you about how intimacy, not just physical intimacy, but emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, if that's your jam, how it stokes desire, how it can stoke desire, and if there's a lack of it, what we can do to bring it back to the fore.
yeah. So I think first of all, we need to talk about, what intimacy is, because a lot of people use the word intimacy when they mean sex. A lot of people use the word sex when they mean intimacy. I make a very big distinction between the two, because you can have intimacy without sex, and you can
Mm-hmm.
have sex without intimacy. They are complementary. They can certainly enhance each other. They can also repel each other, like oil and vinegar. But like oil and vinegar, they can make a delicious salad dressing. It depends how we use them, and the quantities of both. So I think the first thing for us to talk about is, let's talk about what intimacy is. And it's about, the way I see it anyway, and other people might have different opinions, but intimacy is about our capacity and willingness to, at the outset, to be with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is our capacity and willingness to feel our own feelings, to feel our desires, to feel, what's happening in our body, the messages, the signals that our bodies are giving us. If we are disconnected from the things that we want, from the things that we feel physically, the things that we feel emotionally, the things that we, if we're cut off even from our imagination and that kind of stuff, all of this can impact our ability to feel anything that might resemble intimacy with another person. If we cannot have intimacy with ourselves, sorry about the traffic, it's New York. Um, if we cannot have intimacy with ourselves at the outset, it is not impossible, but it's very difficult to then have intimacy with another, because if we don't know what we're bringing to a connection, whether it's a one-night stand or a 10-year marriage, if we are not really there, it's very, very hard to connect with another person. And so that's, I think, the first part. Traffic. That's the first part of understanding intimacy, is our capacity to be able to read ourselves, because being able to bring that to somebody, it takes the guesswork out of our partner having to guess where we're at and how we're feeling and what we want. That capacity to have self-intimacy, I think, is really crucial in this. And that's one of the pieces that's often really omitted in discussions of mismatched libido, is it's all about, me focusing on my partner, me focusing on how do we come together. And before we even get to how do we come together, we have to be, how do I come to myself? How do I know myself? And it doesn't have to be a perfect thing, but there has to be, the lights have to be on at a minimum in order for us to start moving forward.
So, so knowing ourselves, that's one part of intimacy. And when you're in a partnership, if there's a lack of connection between two people, that distance can cause a different feeling, something that is that stands in the way of being vulnerable enough to be there and present. Someone says it's so difficult in a world where we numb ourselves all the time. So if we're in the moment with a partner and we want connection, but we're lacking that connection, and maybe words are a little bit too hard for us to navigate in the moment, what are ways we can help ourselves get into desire? And also help our partners get into desire. So, for instance, with my partners, I will say, you know what, can we take a minute and connect for a little bit? I really like to do that before. And so that will take the form of, snuggling for a bit, talking about our week, holding each other's hands, stroking our hair, all that kind of stuff where you're really engaged in each other, because that is the time. I mean, we're usually not engaged with the rest of the world. Pardon me, I'm going to cough in a minute. But if you could let us know what thoughts you have along those general lines.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, that example you gave of when you can say to somebody, hey, let's hang on a minute, I need for us to snuggle. I mean, that is bringing yourself to the equation. That is checking in with yourself and thinking, is this going too fast for me? Is this going too slow for me? What do I need? And asking for what we want. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, I want this position and that position and pull my hair and slap my ass and all that sort of stuff. It can simply be, let's spend some time watching TV and just chilling, or even in a dating capacity. I had this myself just this week. Somebody was coming on way too strong for me. And I said, you need to back off. This is too much, And even though I'm a sex person, like I'm all about the sex all the time, but I also am very much able to be like, I need this to be at my pace. I need this to be at my speed. And that knowing of self is crucial to be able to say, yes, I'm going to move forward, or actually I need to pull back. And pulling back doesn't mean a no necessarily. It just means slow down. Let's everybody just take a breath and slow down. So
I used to say to someone, you're going a little too fast for my turn on at the moment.
Well, and it can turn into a turn off, even if you like somebody. If it's all too fast and it's racing ahead, even if you like that person, it can land as really abrasive and really rough,
Dehumanizing.
And it's also dehumanizing, absolutely. So, so being able to say, let's slow down, or I would like this, or I would like that, or, what would really suit me right now would be this. And one of the things that I talk about in the book sometimes is if we are even able to have these conversations before we get anywhere near a bed or play surface of any kind, because sometimes when we're in the bed or in the bedroom or in wherever the place where sex happens, sometimes then having to bring it up at that time, we can feel, even though it's not true, we can feel like I'm going to ruin the mood if I say anything, so I'm going to say nothing because I don't want to ruin the mood. Now, if we say nothing, the feeling that you have of something being not quite right, there is an incongruity. You're not, you can feel that it's not going where you want it to go, but you also don't want to say the thing, so you say nothing, thinking if I say nothing, I'll just lie here and hopefully everything will work out for the best. It will not,
No.
especially if that is your MO every single time. Finding the confidence, finding the courage, finding the self-compassion, at the very least, to be able to say to your partner when you're not in the bedroom, when you're away from sex, to talk about it, to say, there are things that I want to share with you
Mm-hmm.
about what turns me on, or what's going to bring me pleasure, or what's going to make me want to be closer to you, because willingness is a big part of this. One must be
Oh,
willing,
yeah.
because if
Yeah.
you're not willing, that is game over, so the
Yeah.
willingness has to be there. And so if you can identify the willingness and you want to invite your partner into the conversation, being able to share with them, this is what I like, and I'm telling you this not to critique you, not to make you feel bad about yourself, but because I want you to come closer to me. And this is how, if you're going to seduce me or you want to turn me on,
Yeah.
this is how to do it,
Yeah.
And so that kind of invitation of conversation, that kind of request, to me, I think is really intimate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because, we can practice these kinds of conversations with, friends, they don't, well, it doesn't always have to be with lovers. Obviously, we're talking about sex today, so we
Mm-hmm.
assume that you're lovers of some kind. But even for people listening who are single, who are not dating anybody, who are only in a sexual relationship with themselves, you can still practice having these intimacy making conversations. You can practice having these conversations with your friends. It's the same skill. The same skill that you use in friendships, you use in romantic partnerships.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I think we sort of feel like, I don't need to learn this stuff because I'm not in a relationship and it doesn't apply to me because I'm single. It applies
Yeah.
to everybody all the time, all genders, all orientations. The sooner we can learn how to talk about our feelings and our longings like they matter, and we privilege them and prioritize them like they
Mm-hmm.
matter, the more practice we can get with our friends that is an ostensibly very safe environment.
Yes. I was just about to
Um,
make that point. Yeah.
yeah, then we can practice doing that with our lovers. Even you and I, Elle,
Mm-hmm.
we speak like that to each other. We make
Yeah.
requests of each other and we tell each other, I want this, I don't want that, this is good for me, this is not good for me. And you and I have that capacity to talk like that. And, we expect it of each other. And
Mm-hmm.
it's when you start making that normal in your friendships, it leaks and bleeds into your erotic relationships so much more easily, because you have lived experience of what it feels like to be validated and heard by people who give a shit about you, and it matters so much.
Absolutely. I mean, there are times where I'll think about, you know, how would how would I feel if my best friend came to me and said, I need to feel connected to you. I don't feel like we've been connected for a while. How can we get connected? I'll tell you what I would love. I would love to spend, half an hour on the phone with you while we watch Forensic Files together. You know what I mean? I would love that. I do this with my friend Jacqueline. We see a movie every week. We watch it from different coasts and we text each other. That's how we stay connected. And that helps me in relationship to be able to feel comfortable saying what I want. Because if you are doing this activity with somebody else, whether it is intimate in the moment, whether you feel anything for them or not, it's important to be able to talk to them as if they were a friend and say,
Yeah.
hey, that feels really good to me, either emotionally or physically. Actually, I like it when you do that, but if you move a little to the left, that would really do the trick.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff really makes connecting intimately be more at arm's reach, and therefore desire right behind it. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the things that we also need to flag here for some people too is that sometimes too much intimacy, too much closeness can be an anti-desire thing. It can be, it can have the opposite effect. And so what I mean by that is if we are in a partnership, and we are often sort of dumping a lot of our emotional stuff onto our partner, or if our partner is the only person we share our inner world with, that we don't have a therapist, we don't talk to our friends about stuff, we don't talk to our, I don't know, whoever, the people in your community, the people at the dog park, whoever are the people that you might, turn to for emotional sustenance and emotional nourishment. If the only person you do emotional nourishment with is your partner, what can happen is that your partner can feel overwhelmed and overburdened by being that for you, where they're taking on the role of lover, best friend, therapist, spouse, mortgage, co-mortgage payment person. Like it's a lot for one person. And so sometimes that kind of intimacy where people are like, well, I'm just creating intimacy, I'm telling you about my world. Yes. And if it's too much, it can have the opposite effect. So then people are like, well, how much is too much? It differs for different couples. You have to be able to talk about where that line is. And sometimes outsourcing some of your emotionality, outsourcing some of your skin hunger, outsourcing some of your, let's say, needs is crucial. So your partner, the person who you're having sex with, or one of them, or however many of them, so they don't feel overwhelmed by the gravitas of what you're offering them in the name of intimacy building. Yes, it's intimacy building, but it can have an effect on erotic desire. So we need to be very attentive to finding a balance with those things. And that really takes practice. That's not something that you just do once. That's an ongoing relational practice about how much is too much and how much is not enough. Because obviously the opposite can be true. If you're not sharing anything with your partner and it's just, hit it and quit it, then that can feel really isolating and discombobulating simultaneously. So,
yeah. I saw that someone asked, like, what if what your partner is asking you to do? And I would imagine in this context, it means emotionally or, just emotionally. What if that's beyond your comfort zone? Can you come to a compromise? Can you let them know that they've been heard? But what do you think?
I think, I mean, again, it's context dependent. Like if it feels like it's out of your comfort zone, say so. Say, this feels like a lot for me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to support you. How can I support you? What are you asking from me? Do you want empathy? Do you want me just to listen? Do you want strategies and solutions? Do you want me to give you advice? Do you want me to make dinner and get in the tub with you and give you a massage? Would that help? Because sometimes if what they're asking of you is outside of your scope of skill, you're allowed to say that. You don't have to be your primary nourishment for your partner 24/7. It's not your job to be their everything. So depending on what it is, you're allowed to say, hey, this is as much as I've got to give. On the flip side, if your lack of sort of practice at being emotionally, available, let's say, stems from the fact that you've not really done a lot of inner work, it's something that you've just always swept under the rug, and you're like, I'll get around to that one day, but I'm not, I don't have the chops for it right now. It might be the time to start learning, which is, okay, so you're feeling X. Say more about that. Tell me more. And so one of the crucial skills to learn to develop our emotional intelligence is to practice asking people more about what it is they want us to know. And you simply just say, tell me more about that. What's that like for you? How does that feel? Yeah, that's how we do it. And so again, I mean, sometimes this can be, it's not always, but it can be very gendered in such that a lot of people raised as men and boys have not learned how to communicate at that level. I think it's changing, but a lot of people raised as men and boys would benefit from actually doing some practice around learning how to be a bit more emotionally engaged in order to have better sex. It's true. So because it is going to mean they're going to have a better time and their partners of any gender are also going to have a better time, because the more that you can bring of yourself to an erotic connection, the more you're going to be able to bounce off of each other and spar with each other, as in, not sparring like fighting, but sparring as in sort of bantering and creating a frisson between you. Because if everything's too kind of floppy and too, nice, then that can get a bit flat. But if it's too aggressive and too, then that can feel a bit jarring, and then you're sort of competing with each other. You want to be able to practice finding that balance of, where's the power, where's the edge, where's the sparkle, because that is often, for a lot of people, what makes sex exciting, especially couples who have been together for some time and they've gotten into a bit of a routine and they're in a bit of a rut, and everything's just a bit kind of meh, or everything's really competitive.
Right.
And, there's nothing wrong with bringing a bit of that kind of edge to your sex life. It doesn't all have to be rose petals and chocolates all the time. But simultaneously, too much edge for some people can be like, the heart's gone out of it. So balance is the key.
I wanted to read another quote. As I was reading your book, I have like pages and pages of notes and quotes that I want to make into memes and all of that. But one of my favorite ones, and maybe you can speak to it, it's still along the lines of what we're talking about. For many of us, eroticism is the space between two parts of ourselves, our vulnerability and our excitement. This tension is the grain of sand that creates the pearl we call desire. So excitement, as opposed to desire and intimacy, and eroticism, as opposed to sexiness, is that more on the sensuality scale? I like the idea of intimacy, building excitement, stoking desire. Can you talk, am I being clear? Can you talk to a little bit about that?
I mean, I wrote that line, so I know what it means, but yeah, I mean, the link between the vulnerability and the excitement is because, if it's too, if it's too floppy, if it's too soft, if it's too mushy, if it's too wishy-washy, for some people that can be off-putting because it's too safe and it's too bland. And what I mean by that, and I'm not coming at it from a place of judgment, this is about brain science. So what we understand, and I go into this in the book because it's very intense and heavy, but I'll try and give you the very gentle version of it. What we understand about how the brain responds to desire and pleasure as opposed to the mind. So the mind is our thoughts and our conscious stuff that we're thinking about day to day. The brain is the mush, the baked beans in our head that all, that do stuff without our conscious awareness. So how the brain responds to stuff that's interesting and exciting can be quite different than how the mind responds. So the mind will say, I really want to have sex with you. I think it's a great idea, but the brain is like, meh, nah, I can't be bothered. And we might know that that's happening if, we're not having an erection, we're not getting engorgement, we're not getting aroused in some way. So the brain is like, no, nothing's happening. Or conversely, we have erections, we have swollen labia, we have, flushing of the skin, but the mind is like, not really interested.
Yeah,
so
I
mean, and that happens to a lot of people, So there's a real gap there between what the mind is doing, what the body is doing, what the brain is doing, what the heart wants. There's a lot of different sort of moving parts there. But when we can straddle the space between those parts, so this is the vulnerability and the excitement. So the excitement might be physical. It might be the arousal, your erection, your engorged labia. It might be that stuff. But the excitement might also be mental. It might be like, I really like the idea of this, even though right now my dick isn't doing what I want it to do, or when you try to stick your dick in me, it hurts, or whatever it is, that we don't necessarily presume that that is the end of the road. There are so many moving parts. And that's why when we can learn to straddle the space between the vulnerability of asking for what we really want or saying what's really going on for us and the excitement that we seek, which is the heat, the passion, the, oh, come here, I'm ready for you now. When we can dance in that gap and learn how that works for us individually, it's so much easier than to bring that to another person and say, hey, this is how sex works for me. Under these situations, under these conditions, under this context, my body and my mind and my heart are going to need this, 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 and this to fire up. Or this is how it used to be. Now that I'm in menopause, it's all a little bit up in the air, but I'm working on it. And as soon as I get something that resembles an answer, I'll let you know. And also, it might not be one thing. There might be lots of different things. If you're having periods still, you might notice that at different weeks of the month, your body is going to respond in different ways than it is when, you know, when you're not ovulating, when you are ovulating. All of these things can have an impact, but being able to talk about it, being able to bridge the gap between the mental, emotional aspect of sex, the physical aspect of sex, and then the creative, imaginary aspect of sex is where all of this is. And it all comes to slowing things down, paying attention, and prioritizing and privileging the stuff that we want more of, and practicing reducing and stepping away from the stuff that we want less of, which is the, you know, this is too hard for me, I'm just going to tune out of everything.
Or trying the same old rote steps.
Right.
Or, you know?
Yeah. If I just keep doing this thing that I've always done, eventually it's going to work. No, it won't work. Stop
or they've liked it our entire relationship, then what's wrong with it now?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And because people change.
Yeah.
We want different things. And so that's why also checking in with your partner, having a State of the Union is also a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cyndi, for doing
You're
this.
welcome. Thank you.
I'll screw up the name of your book, even though I've read it and I've said it a million times. Will you say it again? And you can pre-order it on Amazon right now.
Yes, you can. It's called Sex When You Don't Feel Like It is the main title. The subtitle is The Truth About Mismatched Libido and Rediscovering Desire. And yeah, it's coming out in about 6 weeks. It's available for pre-order now. And I think people should get it because I think it is the first desire book of its kind in the world that is for all genders and all relationships and all orientations, including single people. So I've really tried to cover as many bases as I can, including folks who identify as asexual or on the asexual spectrum at least. So yeah,
it's I have to say, Come As You Are, Emily Nagoski's Come As You Are was game changing and revolutionary, not just for our field, but for the general public. And I think, and not just because you're my wife, but I think that this book is the same way. I think they will be suggested to people in tandem, and I think they're very important to read together. It is the only book of its kind. I've read a lot of books, and it was the only one other than Come As You Are that I literally couldn't put down. And I have a hard time reading. I have ADD, so it's very hard. But I can't recommend it highly enough. And I just think everyone's going to learn something from it that is huge. So that's my endorsement.
Wow, thank you. That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
All right, my love. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming,
Cyndi
everybody.
At Cyndi_Darnell and order her book. Order her book.
Yeah, do it.
I'm gonna shut this off and try and figure out how to download and send it to you because menopause mind, I forgot.
Oh yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll work that out, and I look forward to another time being live with you.
We will do it again.
All right.
All right.
Bye, Watt. Bye, everybody.
Bye.